Syphilis Miasm in the 8th house with Ketu aspect or conjunction, hormonal and planetary influences. The 8th house governs the excretory system, internal sexual organs, such as the testes, ovaries, uterus, colon, prostate, and urinary tract. It also relates to longevity, sudden illnesses, undetectable or undiagnosed diseases, toxicity, and the endocrine system. When Ketu aspects or conjoins planets in the 8th house under the Syphilis Miasm, it leads to degeneration, suppression of sexual energy, chronic illness, and hormonal imbalances. Ketu's reducing influence weakens the body's ability to manage toxicity and reproductive health, leading to both physical and hormonal deterioration. Sun plus Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm, suppression of sexual vitality and reproductive health. The Sun governs vitality and reproductive energy, and Ketu's influence leads to reduction in sexual drive and degeneration of reproductive organs. Under the Syphilis Miasm, this can manifest as infertility, low libido, and chronic reproductive organ dysfunction, such as prostate or ovarian issues. Kidney and urinary system dysfunction. The Sun also impacts the urinary system. Ketu's influence weakens the kidneys and urinary bladder, leading to urinary tract infections, difficulty urinating, or urinary retention. Syphilis accelerates these issues, causing long-term damage to the excretory system. Physical manifestations: low libido, reproductive health issues, infertility, and chronic sexual organ dysfunction. Urinary tract problems, kidney weakness, and difficulty managing urinary function. Mercury plus Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm, nervous system depletion and digestive problems. Mercury governs the nervous system and the colon, and Ketu's influence causes nerve degeneration and digestive system issues. Under syphilis, this manifests as chronic digestive disturbances, such as constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, or colonic inflammation. Additionally, the connection between the nervous system and the excretory organs becomes disrupted, leading to involuntary spasms or colon issues. Reproductive health issues. Mercury also affects communication within the body, and with Ketu's influence, the communication between reproductive organs and hormonal regulation weakens, leading to reduced reproductive function and possible hormonal disorders. Physical manifestations: chronic digestive problems, constipation, and colonic inflammation. Nerve degeneration in the reproductive system, leading to infertility or sexual dysfunction. Saturn plus Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm. Chronic reproductive and excretory issues. Saturn represents chronic conditions, and in the 8th house, with Ketu's reducing influence, this leads to long-term reproductive health problems and excretory dysfunction. This could include infertility, chronic urinary problems, or sexual organ atrophy. Under the Syphilis Miasm, these problems are further worsened, leading to reproductive organ degeneration and chronic excretory system disorders. Endocrine system suppression. Saturn also governs the endocrine system, which, when combined with Ketu's influence, leads to suppression of hormonal production. This can manifest as hormonal deficiencies, chronic fatigue, and metabolic problems that result from weakened hormone regulation. Physical manifestations: chronic reproductive health issues, including infertility, sexual organ atrophy, and urinary dysfunction. Suppressed endocrine function, leading to hormonal imbalances, chronic fatigue, and metabolic disorders. Moon plus Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm. Emotional suppression and reproductive health decline. The Moon governs emotions and reproductive cycles, and Ketu's influence causes emotional detachment and disruption in hormonal cycles. Under syphilis, this can manifest as irregular menstruation, hormonal imbalances, and difficulty managing reproductive health. Emotional suppression worsens sexual health, leading to disconnection from intimacy. Fluid retention issues in the excretory system. The Moon also regulates fluid balance in the kidneys, bladder, and pelvic region. Ketu's reducing effect leads to fluid retention problems, which may manifest as urinary retention, chronic pelvic pain, or bladder dysfunction. Physical manifestations: emotional numbness, irregular menstrual cycles, and reproductive health decline. fluid retention issues in the excretory system, leading to urinary dysfunction and pelvic pain. Mars, Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm, muscle degeneration in the excretory system. Mars governs muscular strength and inflammatory responses, and with Ketu's reducing influence, there is muscle weakness in the colon and pelvic region. Under syphilis, this manifests as chronic inflammation in the excretory organs, leading to conditions like colitis, pelvic inflammatory disease, or hemorrhoids. Reproductive health decline and inflammation. Mars also affects sexual energy and reproductive drive. Ketu's influence reduces Mars's strength, leading to chronic inflammation in the reproductive organs and lower back. The syphilis miasm exacerbates these conditions, causing reproductive health problems, including infertility and sexual dysfunction. Physical manifestations: chronic inflammation in the excretory system, muscle weakness, and digestive issues. Reproductive organ inflammation, sexual dysfunction, and chronic pelvic pain. These planetary influences of Ketu in the 8th house under the syphilis miasm lead to reproductive health issues, chronic excretory problems, hormonal imbalances, and muscle degeneration, with Ketu driving the reduction, suppression, and deterioration of physical and hormonal functions related to the 8th house. Syphilis miasm in the 8th house with Ketu aspect or conjunction, Moon, Jupiter, Mars. The 8th house governs the excretory system, reproductive organs, such as the ovaries, testes, uterus, and prostate, and relates to chronic illnesses, toxicity, sexual health, and longevity. It also impacts the colon, bladder, and endocrine system. When Ketu aspects or conjoins planets like the Moon, Jupiter, or Mars in the 8th house under the syphilis miasm, it leads to reduction of vitality, reproductive health issues, and digestive disturbances. Ketu's influence causes detachment, suppression, and degeneration of bodily and hormonal functions, weakening the systems governed by the 8th house. Moon plus Ketu in the 8th house, syphilis miasm. Emotional detachment and reproductive health issues. The Moon governs emotions, cycles, and reproductive health. Under Ketu's reducing influence, there is a suppression of emotional connection, leading to emotional numbness and difficulty in managing reproductive cycles. Syphilis exacerbates this, manifesting as irregular menstruation, hormonal imbalances, and difficulty in conception for women or sexual dysfunction for men. Fluid retention and bladder issues. The Moon also governs fluid regulation, particularly affecting the bladder and pelvic region. Ketu's reducing aspect results in fluid retention issues, leading to problems like urinary retention, pelvic discomfort, and bladder weakness. Syphilis amplifies these issues, causing chronic urinary disorders. Physical manifestations: emotional detachment, irregular menstruation, and difficulty managing reproductive health, bladder dysfunction, fluid retention in the pelvic region, and chronic urinary issues. Jupiter plus Ketu in the 8th house, syphilis miasm. Reproductive decline and endocrine imbalance. Jupiter governs growth, expansion, and the endocrine system, particularly the regulation of reproductive hormones. Ketu's reducing influence causes hormonal imbalance, resulting in low reproductive vitality, infertility, and endocrine system issues. Syphilis accelerates this, causing severe reproductive health problems and long-term endocrine disorders. Colon and digestive issues. Jupiter also affects the colon and digestive system. With Ketu's influence, the digestive tract weakens, leading to chronic constipation, poor digestion, and colonic inflammation. Syphilis exacerbates these problems, causing issues like inflammatory bowel disease or chronic colonic dysfunction. Physical manifestations: infertility, reproductive health decline, and hormonal imbalances related to the endocrine system. Chronic digestive issues, constipation and colonic inflammation, leading to long-term digestive tract problems. Mars plus Ketu in the 8th house, syphilis miasm. Muscle degeneration and chronic inflammation in the reproductive system. Mars governs muscle tone and inflammatory responses, and Ketu's reducing influence leads to muscle weakness and chronic inflammation in the pelvic region. Under syphilis, this manifests as chronic reproductive organ inflammation, such as prostatitis, ovarian inflammation, or pelvic inflammatory disease. The weakening of the muscles in the lower abdomen can lead to pelvic pain and reduced reproductive function. Inflammation and digestive health issues. Mars also controls the immune system's inflammatory responses. With Ketu's conjunction, there is chronic inflammation in the colon, leading to conditions like colitis, inflammatory bowel disease, or hemorrhoids. Syphilis exacerbates these issues, causing long-term inflammatory problems in the digestive and excretory systems. Physical manifestations. Chronic reproductive organ inflammation, such as pelvic inflammatory disease or prostatitis, leading to chronic pelvic pain. Chronic inflammation in the colon, resulting in digestive disorders like colitis or inflammatory bowel disease. Moon plus Jupiter Ketu in the 8th house, Syphilis Miasm. Emotional suppression and reproductive health decline. The combination of the Moon, Jupiter and Ketu in the 8th house under the Syphilis Miasm leads to emotional numbness, hormonal imbalance and reproductive health decline. Ketu's reducing aspect weakens the connection between emotional well-being and reproductive health, resulting in emotional detachment, irregular menstrual cycles, and difficulty managing reproductive health. Syphilis worsens these issues, leading to long-term reproductive health complications. Chronic digestive issues and endocrine system dysfunction. Jupiter and the Moon also influence the colon and endocrine system. Ketu's reducing aspect results in endocrine system suppression, leading to hormonal deficiencies and chronic digestive issues, such as chronic constipation or inflammatory disorders in the colon. Syphilis accelerates these problems, resulting in long-term damage to the digestive and endocrine systems. Physical manifestations. Emotional suppression, hormonal imbalances and reproductive health issues, including infertility and sexual dysfunction. Chronic digestive problems, colonic inflammation, and endocrine system dysfunction, leading to metabolic disorders and chronic fatigue. These planetary influences of Ketu in the 8th house under the Syphilis Miasm lead to reproductive health decline, hormonal imbalances, chronic digestive issues, and muscle degeneration, with Ketu driving the suppression, reduction, and degeneration of bodily functions related to the 8th house.